And the story is that this federal judge, Judge Jackson, has accused the Justice Department under this criminal son of a bitch, William Barr, of misleading her and Congress. You want to fuck with Congress? Go ahead. You want to fuck with the judiciary? It's an independent judiciary, Willie the Barr, for a number of reasons. And you're the main one. When scum like you work your way up to high levels in the executive branch, and the legislative branch has been totally corrupted by your cult followers, that leaves the judicial branch. And you have pissed off the judicial branch with your disrespect. Not only have you pissed off the judicial branch, you have violated the law, you dumb bastard. So the judge has accused Barr of misleading her and Congress about advice he had received from top Justice Department officials on whether the orange bastard should have been charged with obstructing the Russia investigation. And she has ordered that a related memo about all this be released. Now, memo, that doesn't mean a one-page couple of words. No. She said in a ruling late Monday that the Justice Department's lying appeared to be part of a pattern in which top officials like this filthy William Barr lied to Congress and the public about the investigation. That is no surprise. I'm glad that the judicial branch of government, though, in the persona of Judge Jackson, has finally made it very clear. These bastards lie about everything. There is not a single official in the Trump administration during his entire tenure, and I'm talking about his generals too, who weren't coerced, forced, or for whatever reason, issued lie upon lie upon lie about what was going on in that Justice Department, in that government. And William Barr, not only is William Barr not an exception, William Barr was one of the biggest destroyers or attempting to destroy democracy that ever worked in Washington. Now, the Justice Department had argued that the memo was exempt from public record laws because it consisted of private advice from lawyers whom Barr had relied on to make the call on prosecuting Trump. Now, if that's not a stretch, I'd like to know what the hell is. But Judge Jackson ruled that the memo contained strategic advice and that William Barr and his aides already understood what his decision would be before the report was even released, before it was even finished. These criminal son of a bitches knew what their obligation was. Their obligation, protect Donald Trump at all cost, no matter what. Judge Jackson wrote of Trump, quote, the fact that he would not be prosecuted was a given. That's what the cult suckwads around him had determined. And she also, in her memo, she singled out William Barr for how he had spun the investigation's findings in a letter that summarized this 500-page report before it was released. And that allowed Trump, of course, to claim, fully exonerated, I'm free, not guilty, fully exonerated. Remember all that bullshit? Which is what it was, bullshit. Now, this is how Michael Schmidt of the New York Times reported it. But anyway, Judge Jackson wrote this, quote, the Attorney General's characterization of what he'd hardly had time to skim, much less study closely, prompted an immediate reaction as politicians and pundits took to their microphones and Twitter feeds to decry what they feared was an attempt to hide the ball, end quote. Polite way of saying these lying son of a bitches immediately jumped out to try to continue to lie. And other people knew what was going on. But what could we do, right? Now, the judge's rebuke here has shed some new light on Barr's decision not to prosecute the Orange Bastard. And the judge also wrote that although the Justice Department, portrayed the advice memo as a legal document protected by attorney-client privilege, it was done in concert with Barr's publicly released summary, quote, written by the very same people at the very same time, end quote. So what that means is, yeah, there's attorney-client privilege, but not when you are perpetuating a crime against the United States. I'm sorry, it's not going to wash then, you stupid bastards. Now, the Times reports that a spokeswoman for William Barr did not return an email seeking comment. And the Biden Justice Department spokesman declined to comment also. So here's the deal. Judge Jackson said that the Biden government has until May 17th, that's 12 more days, to decide whether it planned to appeal her ruling or let the ruling stand. That's a decision that will be made by a Justice Department run by Biden appointees. Now, I just hope and pray that Joe Biden is still not operating under this goddamn delusion that he's going to get any cooperation from any filthy Christian fascist or any of the zombie Republicans, and therefore it might behoove him to file against what the judges order. Please, Joe Biden, don't do that. Don't side with the enemy. I mean, we're about to see chunks of evidence that will prove once and for all to anyone who has eyes, ears, and a brain that we survived the most criminal fucking administration this country has ever known. Don't get in the way, Joe Biden, please. Now, the ruling from the judge came as a result of a lawsuit filed by the government watchdog group CREW, that stands for Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. And that lawsuit asked that the Justice Department be ordered to turn over a whole range of documents related to how top law enforcement officials cleared the Orange Bastard of all of his criminal activities. That's all. Just show us how Trump managed to escape the hangman's noose. Just show it to us. So in case you need a refresher course, I'll give you a quick one here, thanks to the Times. At issue is how Barr handled the end of the Mueller investigation and the release of its findings in March of 2019. The Office of the Special Counsel overseeing the inquiry, that was Mueller, delivered its report to the Justice Department. In a highly unusual decision, Mr. Mueller declined to make a determination about whether Trump had illegally obstructed justice. Right? You remember all this, right? That opened the door when Mueller said, you know, I did what I was instructed to do by Congress, I'm out of here. But that opened the door for Barr to take total control of the investigation up to that point and anything subsequent. So 2 days after receiving the report, Barr sent a 4-page letter to Congress saying that the Orange Bastard would not be charged with obstructing justice. And then he went on to summarize the report in his filthy Christian fascist way, of course. Now, Mueller's team believed that Barr's characterization of the document was misleading and privately urged Barr to release more of their findings. But Willie the Barr more or less said, no, I'm sorry, boys. This is as far as I'm going. I've got a president to protect. Fuck you. I mean, you're just a special counsel. I am the Attorney General of the United States, which means I am Donald Trump's lawyer. So that was the end of that, right? Now, about a month later, around the time that report was released to the public with all the redactions, Barr testified to Congress that he had made that decision not to charge Trump, quote, in consultation with the Office of Legal Counsel and other department lawyers, end quote. Oh, yeah, the Office of Legal Counsel. Isn't that the office that, John, you worked for during the George W. Bush administration that allowed the United States to become a country that officially adopted torture as one of our policies? Yes, it is. Anyway, he also made it clear that the decision to clear the orange bastard of wrongdoing had been left to Barr because Mueller had made no determination about whether Trump broke the law. But that was because that was not what Mueller was charged to do. Mueller was not a cop. He was not a special prosecutor. He was a special counsel, a special investigator. It wasn't up to Mueller to make that determination. You know who it was up to? Exactamento. It was up to the Attorney General of the United States, and we know who that was. Anyway, Judge Jackson said in this ruling that Bill Barr had been disingenuous in those assertions that he made to the public and to Congress, adding that it had not been left to him to make the decision about the prosecution. She also said that in the litigation between the government and crew, the Justice Department under Barr had claimed that the memo written by his top officials had been about legal advice that he had relied on to make the decision and should be shielded from the public because it was legal advice between Trump and Bob Barr or Bill Barr. Are you kidding me? Two top-rated criminals deciding the best way to unravel democracy, and we, the public, are not supposed to know. Fuck that, right? Now, it is true that under federal law, the Justice Department can claim that such advice should be shielded because it is, quote, deliberative, end quote. And the possibility of releasing that information could keep advisors from giving their unvarnished counsel because they fear it may become public someday. What? Well, if you tell the truth, what do you have to worry about? What do you have to concern yourself about? In fact, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said, right? Anyway, instead of all that bullshit, according to the judge, Willie Barr and his aides had already decided not to bring charges against Trump. That was a preemptive decision by these criminals. So, according to the Times, the judge reprimanded the Justice Department for portraying the memo that was written so that Barr could release it, portraying that memo as part of deliberations over whether to prosecute the president. It wasn't. And the judge noted that she had been allowed to read the full memo before making her decision over the objections of the Justice Department, and that memo that Bob Barr used to bullshit everybody revealed that, quote, this is the judge speaking, excised portions belie the notion that it fell to the Attorney General to make a prosecution decision or that any decision was on the table at any time. And the judge went on to say, quote, the department, Justice Department, has been disingenuous to this court, that means lied to this court, with respect to the existence of a decision-making process that should be shielded by the deliberative process privilege. Too many syllables here. I'm getting out of breath. What she's saying is essentially that these bastards lied up and down the entire court proceedings of this entire situation. Now, this judge oversaw the trial of that filthy pig, Roger Stone. And one of the cases against Trump's one-time campaign manager, the fascist Paul Manafort. And although Trump has publicly attacked this judge, legal experts say she operated as an unbiased arbiter during the Russia investigation. Well, yeah, but if you're unbiased around Trump, if you're not biased in his favor, then you are inviting his attack because he is a fascist son of a bitch. He is a fascist pig. He is supported by Christian fascists, and this bullshit is never going to stop until he stops. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.